Well, I've gone even crazier now.
Have you?
Mm-hmm.
Explain yourself, sir.
Well, I was playing Elite Dangerous on the PS4 with the flight stick.
As you do.
And the flight stick was on. We have this coffee table, and we didn't realize when we bought it, but we discovered it has this secret feature where it actually elevates. Like you can pick up the top of the table, and it's got this. So then it becomes like a table you can pull over and eat off of or whatever. So that was pretty cool. So I would elevate the table and then put the flight stick on the table and run it to the PlayStation and sit and play. But that's still not the most comfortable way to play. Oh. So
you're not playing Elite Dangerous laying in bed now, are you?
No. I have repurchased the game on the computer. Well, you may recall I did purchase a giant, super wide, gorgeous monitor.
Yes.
And a very nice new desk with a keyboard tray at just the right height. So now that is also my cockpit for Elite Dangerous. But I had to start my whole account over because you can't take your account from PlayStation to the computer.
Right.
I have heard they did some people have said that if you contact their customer service, they'll transfer like your credits over so that you can rebuy what you had. Like your in-game money so you can buy a new ship.
Right.
Or just pick up where you left off sort of.
Right.
But I started replaying it from the beginning and I discovered a much more fun way to play.
Uh-oh.
And I have had a much better experience than the experience I was already thoroughly enjoying.
Do tell.
I stopped caring about money.
And you're an accountant. How dare you?
Well, I'm profitable. And I'm able to I was playing for money and upgrading my ship and playing for money and upgrading my ship and playing for money and upgrading my ship.
Sure.
And that's how I found myself into the grind of doing things like, I found this perfect trade route and all I have to do is sit for an hour and run goods back and forth between these two space stations. And then I will make, huge amounts of money. And yes, I can do that. I could be rich if I wanted a completely boring job. But I decided to, and I had also bought several several spaceships. Sure. Like one to do fighting and one to do mining and one, whatever. And I wasn't using any of them except the freighter because the freighter was where I got the most money. So I decided I was going to focus on just building reputation with the different in-game factions.
Okay.
And second of all, I was only going to have one ship. And third of all, I was going to stop chasing the most expensive missions. And that's how I discovered I had fallen into a trap. Because the game ranks you in 3 different ways. You're either a trader, you have a trader rank, you have a combat rank, and you have an exploration rank.
Okay.
And as you start to gain ranks by doing the appropriate activities, the people who offer you missions offer you more high-paying missions of those types. So in the beginning, when I had started doing simple trading, because it seemed like the easiest way to make some money, I started gaining trade ranks very quickly and neglecting my other ranks. So the mission people kept offering me more and better paying trading missions. And so I'm like, okay, the secret to getting rich at this game is doing nothing but trading. When actually the secret to getting rich at the game is finding the way you want to play and then building a reputation at that, which actually makes more sense. So I bought one starship that would work or a spaceship that would work as a that I could kit out with different equipment to do different types of missions. And I just started taking on a little bit of everything. And along the way, I also took off my mission blinders, where it was like, okay, I got to fly here and do this, and then fly here and do this, and fly here and do this. And I would just start, if things popped up, I'd be like, I wonder what that is. You know, I started mapping out star systems because people will pay you for the data if you scan all the planets in a star system.
Mm-hmm.
But in so doing, as you get close to these planets, first of all, some of them are really pretty. So it's just like you're flying along and it's like, oh my God, that planet looks like it's made out of gold. Huh. And then I actually stop and go into first person view and I'm looking out my window as I cruise past, just like I would in a car if I'm like, oh, hey, there's a building made out of gold. But then, like, there's random encounters pop up during the game as you're flying around. And a lot of them are just wreckage. And I had sort of just started ignoring them because I kept flying into them and it was nothing but, you know, scoop up this wreckage. And then you gather the wreckage and then that's it. Right? Mm-hmm. But I said, I'm going to check these out because that can't be all there is. So at one point I found a search and rescue operation where there were a bunch of escape pods with people in them. And there was a search and rescue ship that didn't have, and basically you could see the communication between the NPC ships.
Sure.
And they couldn't pick up everybody. So I'm like, okay, I'll just, you know, and I locked, you know, grabbed my cargo scoop and I scooped up the escape pods into my cargo hold. And then I started looking around at what else was in the wreckage and found some other stuff and grabbed that too, whatever I could take, took them back, and I got a reward for the search and rescue operation.
Huh.
Like, okay, that's kind of neat that you could just have that happen. Then I'm flying along and there's a distress call. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I have weapons. So I drop into this distress call and it looks, this pirate is beating the hell out of this freighter. And the pirate is in an overpowered ship that I don't think I can take. But what I did was I attacked the pirate and then like drew him off. And I assume the freighter got away because it vanished from my scan eventually, or I must have flown out of range.
Sure. So
now the pirate's attacking me and I'm just being evasive. And in the meanwhile, the system's police response showed up. So then all of a sudden I have the federal ships in there. They start attacking the pirates. So I slam on the brakes, turn around, and I lay into them too. And then I get a bounty for it. So there's all these little emergent stories suddenly happening because I'm not just like, you know, have my mission blinders on.
Huh.
You know? And it all sort of culminated last night. I'm flying through a system. And this was like the coolest experience. Flying through a system, and I'm on my way from somewhere to somewhere. And I don't have my little... I didn't have something equipped on my ship that I needed. So as I'm surveying this planet, I get this weird little, you know, just a contact on my radar. And it's like, hey, you have... there's an unauthorized installation near this planet, or on this planet, or in orbit around this planet. I'm like, what the heck is that? But I don't have time to check it out because I'm on a timed mission and whatever. So I bookmark the planet in my map.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'll come back. I'll kit myself out to check this out. I'll come back. And sure enough, I do. I drop out of hyperspace at this location. And there is this weird, gigantic space station. Unlike any I have seen in the game so far. You know, it's not a normal space station where you can dock. And there's a little like scanning aperture on it, like an antenna you can scan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I scan it and I start to pick up all these basically dead drop signals that have been scattered around the outside of the station. And some of them are in the superstructure of the space station. So you actually have to fly into little hallways and gantries and stuff between the sections. So it's like this tough little thing I'm doing. And I'm following these dead drops, and they're telling the story of a security official who had infiltrated the station, claimed to be a part of this criminal operation, and discovered that they were kidnapping people. And at first she thought they were doing medical experiments on them, but it turned out they were actually just implanting goods in them without their knowledge, so that they would then, you know, continue. Then they'd put them back, and the person bewildered with, you know, would continue on their way, and they would unknowingly smuggle goods in their bodies, and then they could be kidnapped wherever they went, and the goods would be taken back out. So, okay, there's this whole little story built in because I stopped to check out what this is. I get to the last dead drop and the woman's like, look, I've been made. I have no choice. I can't get a ship out of here. The best thing I could do is I'm just going to put myself in an escape pod and launch myself. If anybody finds me, take me back to this space station and tell the Federales what's going on. So I swoop around a little bit. I scan, and sure enough, kind of lodged in the superstructure of this thing is her escape pod. I kind of have to maneuver in there and pick it up in my cargo scoop, and then I get her, and I fly to this space station, drop her off. I get a reward. Here's your money. Nothing ever comes of it because, the police aren't going to tell you what came out of it.
Sure.
I'm just this guy, right? I just picked up a hitchhiker, but then as I'm sitting in the space station, the faction controlling the space station has these announcements going saying, warning about rumors of civil unrest in the system and saying, don't be alarmed and ignore it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, don't be alarmed about the civil unrest rumors you've heard. That's such a suspicious denial. Mm-hmm. So I start checking the mission board, and the system is basically in civil war. I'm like, you know what? Since my ship is now my home, because I only have the one ship, I'm just going to hang out here for a while and start helping quell this rebellion. So now I've been doing missions for them. And, it's all just part of the same mechanics of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But in so doing, I have now developed this emergent story about my character who is... does whatever jobs he does, he'll take jobs to keep his ship floating and upgrade it and whatever. But he's really just kind of concerned about what's out there, and he's moral. So when something comes up that he feels like he should be a good guy and take care of, he jumps in and does it, But he's also not afraid, he's moral, but he's not necessarily legal.
Right.
Because I've stolen some stuff. I've engaged in a little bit of piracy, but it was piracy against pirates, so it's okay,
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm selling their stuff on the black market.
So scoundrel with a heart of gold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm basically Han Solo after A New Hope.
Right.
And now I'm having, much more fun with the game than I was already having.
Well,
because I found a way to make my own fun, and I have all these stories about my character now.
Cool. That sounds frankly awesome. Yeah. If only they had landing gear.
They do have landing gear. All you have to do is bind the key to literally any button you want. Did you do the tutorials in the menu?
I got as far as the tutorials.
Of the submenu of the submenu.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, it is one of those games that just does not give you any help. But the game does actually have a manual.
Does it?
Yes. You have to download it.
Of course.
And here's the weird thing. There's even an explanation as to why you just start off with a free spaceship at the space station. It's like, here you go, Captain whatever, or Commander whatever, here's your spaceship, which you got for free. There's actually a little story about it in the manual, about this weird philanthropist who works for the Pilots. He was like a Pilots Federation, but he was also a scoundrel with a heart of gold. Mm-hmm. And he got rich. So now he just, I don't know, in some craziness, he just gives out free spaceships to promising pilots and says, here you go. Do what you will with it.
Huh.
Just standard eccentric billionaire type 1A. The same guy who would run Rat Race or Mad World.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's interesting that you have suddenly changed your approach to the game and discovered it's actually way better than you even thought it was.
Yeah. Well, you know what though? Now that I'm telling the story, because we've talked about this a lot,
mm-hmm.
I realized what I had done was optimize the fun out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yes, I had found a way to get rich. Except that I was accepting a premise that technically the game didn't hand me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was assuming money was the way to win. You know, because the game, money is basically score, right?
Right.
It's your experience points. It's your upgrade track. Whatever it is, that's it. So I assumed, okay, that's the point of the game. And I didn't pay enough attention to everything else because it's such an obvious score. So I didn't even realize there was a reputation system that was actually dynamic. And I was aware of the politics of the game, but not to the extent that they were modifying the in-game experience based on how you were playing it.
Huh.
You know.
Yeah. That's I feel like there's a larger lesson in there. Because this is, would you say this is a sandbox sort of game?
It is. It's definitely. In fact, I would not even hedge. It is 100% a wide open sandbox.
Okay.
There is no narrative to the game except that which you make yourself. So there's nothing that provides an impetus to go from one place to another or do one thing over another.
So perhaps we will eventually have some lessons about how to do sandbox games from Elite Dangerous at some time.
Yeah. Well, I've honestly, I've been thinking. I'm working on an article to come out soon. I don't normally talk about like what I'm working on for the Angry GM here, but in this case, it's relevant. I'm working on rethinking the way most GMs view random encounters based on Elite Dangerously. And Allie and I sat down last weekend because she ended up with a night off. She didn't have any homework. She didn't have to go into work. She just ended up with a night off, which is her first one in weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And so we decided we wanted to play a board game, and we were looking through through our board games.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the Firefly. I cannot remember which one was the show, which one was the movie.
It's one of the two, yes. They're essentially
it's
the
like
same.
the Firefly / Serenity board game.
Right.
Which I had bought or received as a gift like 2 years ago and never played.
Oh, that's a shame, because it's a good game.
I mean, it's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. But this is the weird thing. As we're playing it, you fly from planet to planet, you take on jobs, you ship cargo or passengers, and along the way you have random encounters. I'm like, okay, so this is Elite Dangerous, the board game with cowboys, because it basically is.
Yeah.
And it also has a random encounter system if you try to move hastily.
Right.
Right? Because there's two modes of moving across the board. You can move one space at a time, or you can burn fuel and go for a full burn. And then every time you move, you have to draw a card. And some of the cards just say, nothing here, keep going. And then some of the cards are random encounters. But the random encounters actually, they are micro narratives. So you'll encounter a card that basically, I can't remember because they phrase everything like it's the Firefly universe.
Mm-hmm.
Like every other thing written on any one of the cards is a quote from the show. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, so one of them you'll encounter is a distress call. Right?
Right.
So you'll encounter a distress call and you'll have two options on the card. You can take on a challenge to go over to the distress call you stop. You have to stop your movement for the turn. And then you can go over to the distress call and you might end up with salvaging some stuff, right? You take a little challenge and then you get some stuff or some passengers or whatever. Or alternatively, you can choose not to stop. You can just keep flying. But if you do so, if you have any crew members who have the keyword moral, they get disgruntled because they don't like you ignoring people in need. Right?
Right.
But the whole point is that little choice that you have to make, and that, here's a potential reward, but you have to stop moving, or you can keep moving and continue your turn as planned because presumably you're pursuing a larger goal. But if you're a good person or you have good people on your crew, You're doing the bad thing, and that has a consequence. And that is a little micro-narrative. And far more interesting than, like, if that were D&D and you rolled a random encounter, it would be, okay, there's 3 goblins, now fight them, you know?
Right. Yeah, I've played it twice, and it's actually really good being a what do you want to call it, a bounded sandbox?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, because it has the one overarching goal, right? Mm-hmm. Which it needs, because otherwise you could play forever.
Right.
So there has to be a way to end the game, you know. And there is even the one, because at the beginning of the game you pick a goal card, and it defines what the players have to do to win, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the goal cards is whoever has, you know, the first person to get over this much money can say, okay, I win. And then everybody else gets one more turn. And then everybody counts up their money, and whoever actually has the most money is the winner. And that's sort of just like you just go out there, make money however you can, and see who comes out ahead. Mm-hmm. You know, that's the Monopoly goal. It's also neat that it doesn't, like, there aren't too many ways to mess with other players, but there are a couple. So it's like lightly competitive. Mm-hmm. You know, mostly you're just doing your own thing while someone else is doing their own thing. But like, you can hire disgruntled crew away from other people. So if people are keeping their crew grumpy, you can hire their crew away. Or you can, like, there's the Alliance ship and the Reavers ship that sometimes you get to move.
Right.
And you can move them in ways to block the other person. But if you're not an outlaw ship, you have nothing to fear from the Alliance ship. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I think it's a source of jobs and stuff. You can work for the Alliance captain.
Not so with the Reavers.
No, the Reavers are not hiring currently.
It's not a job opportunity you want. Terrible work environment. You remember my brother sent me his now worthless and used PS4, right? Because he bought a PS4 Pro. So, you know, we can't have this.
And then we friended each other, and I immediately started playing on the PC instead.
Yep. Good job. Good job. You'll recall I predicted this.
I'll be back to the PS. I just need to find a new game to play.
Sure. Can I recommend that you not choose Destiny 2, which
don't
was free this month, which is the only reason I grabbed it. You know, AAA title for free. Why, gosh, you must grab onto one of those. God of War was the other one. And I have no interest in God of War, really.
Wait, on the PS, are we talking the PlayStation Plus free game?
Yeah.
You're kidding. Which God of War is free?
Oh, Jesus. 3, I think.
Oh, too bad. I already have that one.
I think. I mean, you have to pay attention to this stuff.
I know. I usually did every month at the beginning of the month, like on the 5th when the new games would roll over for PS Plus. Mm-hmm. I would check them and see what was out, and then I would grab. So I've actually gotten some very enjoyable games that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of good things in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's God of War 3 remastered.
There you go. No, the. All right, so I grabbed Destiny 2 Forsaken, mm-hmm. in which they pull a Joss Whedon and kill a main character. Mm-hmm. I won't reveal which one is explained in the trailers is going to die. The point I am getting at slowly and pointlessly is that I have been playing Destiny 2 for a couple of weeks now. And I got my main character through the entire storyline. And now mm-hmm. I don't, there's what I'm just randomly roaming planets looking for secrets. That's what I'm doing.
That's not really your type of gameplay.
No. There's a number of problems with Destiny 2 Forsaken that I find very nearly insurmountable in terms of somebody who's trying to understand how a game works and make the most of it. Problem number one is you're supposed to be able to upgrade your gear. Okay?
Right.
Because there's something like several million different kinds of things you can get for weapons and armors and, upgrades and that kind of stuff. There's an upgrade system so that if you find something you like, right, you really, really like, but you get it at a super low level, so it's not as effective as it could be because all the stats are scaled to the level you get it at and all that. You can, by sacrificing other equipment, upgrade the piece of equipment you want to keep.
Okay.
The items you have to sacrifice must be of a higher level or a higher power, at least, so that you're constantly improving things, okay? That's great. That sounds brilliant, doesn't it?
Sure.
The gun of extreme shootiness that you got at level 5, you can keep that up to level 20 or better.
Just keep upgrading.
Keep upgrading it is the promise the game makes and does not fulfill.
Okay.
Because, as it turns out, when you get that far, when you get to a point where, okay, it's time to start upgrading my favorite gear so I can do things, say like you finish the main story and you have achieved level 20, the problem becomes you still don't have access to all the materials you need in order to upgrade gear.
Okay.
There are, as far as I could tell, 3 different types of materials needed to upgrade a weapon or a piece of armor.
Okay.
2 of which you get by sacrificing, or not sacrificing, but by tearing down the 2 highest tiers of gear you can actually get in the game.
Okay.
So they're pieces of elite, and I can't remember what the other one is. Anyway, it's like rare and super rare, basically. All right. Pieces of rare and super rare gear that you tear apart to get the bits out of that you then plug into your new thing so you can upgrade it.
Right.
You don't get a lot of those. Those are random drops. So honestly, if you're looking to upgrade your gear, you've got to play a significant portion of the game beyond the end of the main storyline. For example, one might suggest DLC content is the thing you want to play.
Oh, what a shame.
To get more. Or PvP. You want to go to the Crucible and shoot other players in the hopes of getting a random drop that might have a thing that you want in it to tear apart for something else. That's problem 1. This isn't explained anywhere. And in fact, I went looking on the good old internet, the internet, where all the informations are kept.
Yeah, sure.
Looking for
true and false information.
Looking for info on how to upgrade weapons and why I wasn't being allowed to do it and where I could find the bits I needed to do it with, etc., etc., etc. It seems like Destiny 2 Forsaken completely changed most of the upgrading systems in Destiny 2 Vanilla.
Oh.
So guess what version of the game I could find information for? I'll give you a hint, not the current one. Because in everybody's rush to get, have the website with the information about the game that everybody was playing, Destiny 2 Vanilla, nobody thought, oh, well, all these systems have changed in Forsaken, and I should go back and update my pages and maybe explain the new system. Nope. Nobody thought that. Apparently the makers of Destiny 2 didn't even think that.
Huh. Seems a small oversight.
Not even, not that they bothered to explain the original Destiny 2 Vanilla. Because if you're looking for official explanations about how things work and what things do and all that kind of stuff, you have fun. You just have a ton of fun. It ain't at the game's website.
Huh.
So that's annoyance number 1. Annoyance number 2 is what I'm going to call undifferentiated classes. There are 3 classes in the game. Okay, 3 classes. you have, as part of your class, you have 3 stats. And I cannot, at this very moment, remember exactly what they are called. I know one of them is resilience. Mm-hmm. Okay. Which is basically how fast you recover from various things. There's like a defense, and I think the other one is basically what your
mobility, resilience, and recovery.
Yeah, there you go. Mobility, resilience, and recovery. Thank you for looking that up for me because I'm too lazy to do that.
No problem. That's what I'm here for.
Mobility, resilience, and recovery. So mobility, much like it sounds, is how well you move. That feeds into your jumping ability and your dodging and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And resilience is how quickly you recover. And what was the third one? The
recovery.
Recovery, yes. No, recover. Okay,
Armor and health regeneration.
Yeah, recovery is basically what keeps you alive. Okay,
right.
Resilience is more like how much damage you can take. Excuse me. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the point being, there are
like hit points versus healing rate.
Sure. There are 3 classes in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One is called a Titan.
Okay.
One is called a Warlock.
Okay.
And one is called a Hunter.
Okay.
All right. You with me so far? You've got all that?
Yeah, sure.
Good. Excellent. Glad to hear it. Thank you. What does the Titan do? You want to guess what their stat is?
I would imagine that they would have high resilience.
Yes, indeed. They are the tank.
Right. Yeah. Okay. They're the tank class.
Right. You want to guess what the Warlock does? Don't look it up. Just
no.
Yes.
Can I skip ahead? Well, see the Warlock, because I knew you were going to ask this, so I already started thinking.
Okay.
And the Warlock, I have to hit by process of elimination.
Mm-hmm.
Because what was the other one you said? Hunter?
Yes.
Hunter. Because the Hunter, I would call the DPS class.
Sure.
And therefore, or the striker, the damage.
Yeah, the
damage
nuke.
Dealer, the glass cannon.
Mm-hmm.
And I would put them then at mobility.
Yes, very good. You've played this game before.
Well, yeah. So therefore, that leaves the Warlock as, I mean, the traditional role would be the buffer and healer.
Sure.
And therefore, that would make sense for recovery.
You bet.
But the idea of that being Warlock is strange to me. Because I don't associate that with Warlockness. You know? So that's why I said by process of elimination, I'm guessing what the Warlock specializes in.
Okay. Yeah, you're correct.
Right.
You're correct. The thing is, I've played a Titan all the way through to level 20.
Okay.
I am playing a Warlock up through, what am I, like 9 or 10 right now? Something like that. I haven't played a Hunter yet. Probably won't play a Hunter, frankly. But the point I'm getting at is, even though all of these things have different names and are attached to different attributes, they are essentially the same bloomin' thing.
Huh. Well, that's a shame.
Hunters get a bow that nobody else appears to get. I should say have access to. But basically the way it works out is like this. The Titan is the punchy one.
Okay.
The Hunter is the rifle-y one, or the gunny one. And the Warlock is the grenade-y one. It doesn't make any...
Wait, Warlock has grenades?
Yes. Well, technically everybody has grenades.
Oh, okay.
But the Warlock is the specialist in grenades. Or rather, the Warlock's abilities that I've seen so far have limited them to being useful with grenades. For their special power, which you can access once it charges up, eventually, for half a second.
Okay.
Because you can punch with all the characters.
Sure.
You can shoot with all the characters. And you can throw grenades with all the characters. And they have a selection of superpowers that are very similar across classes. Like I played the Titan, right? And you go through, you get like 3 different phases of Titan abilities, right? And you end up with what I keep referring to as the Sunbro. as the final Titan subclass.
Sure.
Well, you start with a Sunbro on your Warlock.
Wait, are you doing a Dark Souls reference, sir?
No.
Oh.
It's like a bunch of there's sun something or others. I can't remember. I call them Sunbros because that's just, what they are. The Titan is very much stand in the middle fight going, hey guys, look at me. I can glow. That kind of stuff.
I just asked because Sunbro is the nickname of a certain faction in Dark Souls.
Okay, I don't care about your Dark Souls.
Fine.
It means nothing to me. No, I was just because.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm only pretending to care about your Destiny 2.
I know. That's fine. I don't care.
But that's okay because you were only pretending to care about Elite Dangerous.
There you are.
So we're even.
There.
Anyway, back to pretending to care.
Yes. There's no difference between the classes. No significant difference. Let's put it that way. All right. Gear stats are more or less the same, except in which particular stat the gear is specialized. They all use the same weapons. And so that leads me to wondering, why do I want to play more than one character? Because the playstyles are not significantly different.
Right.
Okay. Also, as you might have gathered, there, as far as I've played the Warlock, there's no actual warlocking. There's no magic-y bits other than the same magic-y bits all the other characters have. So what I'm looking at is I've played Destiny 2, right? And I've literally played as much of Destiny 2 as I'm going to play. I wasn't interested enough in the game to buy it outright in the first place. So having it handed to me for free does not then encourage me to get the DLC,
Mm-hmm. Which is what they're hoping to do.
Right, exactly. And that's why a number of things have been stuck behind the DLC, or at least, if not stuck behind it, at least put in a place where the easiest and most logical next step is to get the DLC so that you can progress and therefore get better access to the things you need to do the stuff that actually interests me.
See, now I have to confess, knowing that it's available for free on PlayStation Plus, I'm probably going to try Destiny 2.
Go right ahead.
Since I have until October 2nd, I think, to grab it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could literally, grab it now.
Wow. No, I would have to get up.
Oh, yeah, don't then.
And, leave this recording.
Yeah, don't. That would be bad. I would be lonely. Anyway, the point is, I've been playing Destiny 2. I keep getting told by people, this is brilliant. And I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. Now, I know the first Destiny game had a lot of problems. Yeah,
well, honestly, the issue with the first Destiny game, as I understand it, because I had not played it, was more that it had been very hyped up.
Mm-hmm.
And so any weaknesses in a game get immediately amplified by the amount of hype that the game received before it came out.
Right, okay.
So people were expecting a lot more from the first Destiny.
Oh.
And as far as I like, it was generally favorably reviewed, wasn't it? It wasn't. I mean, it got a sequel, so.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess.
And you wouldn't make a sequel to a terrible movie.
No. Or announce your plans for 5 years worth of sequels. You wouldn't do that.
Right? That would be crazy.
That nuts. Why would you do that? Anyway, so I've been playing Destiny 2. And I'm actively searching for another game because the only draw for me right now with Destiny 2 is the fact that my brother has it as well.
Yeah.
So we can play it together, So I'm actively searching for a different, better game that we can play together. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I really don't do much multiplayer, so I can't recommend anything. Or multiplayer. Yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
I don't play with other people.
I know. I know. It's rough. I've been looking at The Division, which I'm told is an even worse idea. But I remember playing either an early access or a demo version of The Division way back when it first came out, and actually sort of enjoying it as long as I stayed out of PvP.
I wanted to ask you just sort of a prime the pump question.
Oh, okay.
Out of curiosity.
Yes.
Okay. Pets, hench people, and other things that belong, basically an NPC member of the party that belongs to one player. Right? In general, how do you handle that at the table? Do you play it? Do the players play it? Who makes the choices? Does it role play? Who role plays it? What's your general approach? I'm just curious.
You just curious.
I'd be curious. Okay. Yeah, and I'm actually curious about everyone out there.
All right.
So I mean, we try to leave a question once in a while. So that would be an interesting thing to comment with. How have you dealt with pets?
How have you dealt with pets? Okay, fair enough.
Familiars, animal companions, all that crap.
All right.
Squires.
Well, leaving aside a story I've already told.
Yeah. I don't mean like how do you get rid of them?
In general.
I don't mean deal with in the mafia sense.
Right. In general, the player runs their companion pet, whatever it is.
Okay.
In my games, but they do so with a pretty well-defined limit of the sorts of actions said thing can take. They can do whatever they want story-wise. Okay. Right. If you my pet chicken pecks at so and so shoelaces. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. That's up to you. But if it tries to become a battle chicken, we're going to have issues because that will not have been one of the things that it's appropriate to do. So somebody will get a pet or whatever, and I'll say, okay, great, you've got a pet. It's great. You can do whatever you want story wise. That's fine. But when it comes to combat, they can attack, a basic attack as per the, the monster manual or nearest equivalent. And they could be used as a distraction in some way, or they could, whatever. I'll just lay down the ground rules and say, this is what you can do. All right. Because I don't want at any point the pet to be more a member of the party than the character themselves is. Right. I'm not the third level chicken is not going to suddenly become the star of the party, at my table, at least, because I expect.
So like was it the opening cutscene in Fable 3? It was all about the chicken.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, and then it was disappointing because the rest of the game was about a person.
Oh, I see. Now I understand the reception of that game better. So they have limits, and as long as the player keeps their pet within those limits, that's fine. When they try to become the hero chicken of the world, not so much. That's not fine. I'm not telling stories for chickens.
Huh. Okay.
I'm glad we got that out of the way ahead of the time so that we don't... Well,
no, I was just curious because the question we're asked was not really about that.
Okay.
Right. It's more about mechanics.
Okay.
But I was just curious because pets and familiars and animal companions are something that have been around in D&D for a while. And D&D sort of remains quiet on how to actually, like, the table logistics of it. I'm not referring to how to handle it inside the game, but the table logistics itself of, like, who makes the die rolls for it? Yeah, and who makes the decisions for it?
Yeah, the player.
The
player. I give them that.
See, that's it, because I split it half and half.
Do you?
Yeah, in general, I role play as the GM. I role play everything that isn't the PC. So its general behavior and what it communicates and how it behaves is under my purview. Because in my world, the players only have control over their characters.
Right.
However, and the player can order the order the creature around. However, to simplify things in like combat, or when it comes to just making a skill roll or whatever, the players roll the dice and they can control the character in combat, and I just retain veto power where I'm like, no, your chicken actually will not try to fight a fully trained war nightmare. Sorry. The chicken has more survival instinct than your average adventurer. So.
Yeah, I just it's just a piece of load that I don't want when I'm trying to run the game.
So and you're running literally every other character in the world.
Right.
And one more is the straw that breaks your back.
That's right. Because they're not all present at the same time. The thing is, though, to be perfectly frank, much like my little former druid friend, what happens is the players get really, really excited about having a pet or a familiar or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Right up to the point until they actually have it.
Yep.
And then they entirely forget about it.
Which is another reason why I roleplay the thing. Because it has needs.
Yes.
And it causes problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Abu was a fun little character in Aladdin.
Yeah.
Yeah. If not for him, there would have been that the flying carpet escape from the collapsing cave of wonders.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. So basically it's actually a thing that almost never comes up at my tables is because the player who has the pet just, I've got it now. And now I forget about it. And it's never mentioned again. Every once in a while, I, as the GM, will go, and your chicken does 1 point of damage to something off to one side somewhere. It's like, okay, I don't know why you got this thing, why you were so excited about it, and then you kind of just don't ever use it. It's there. I know it's there. You've forgotten it's there. Are you ready for feedback now?
Yeah. Obviously, we'll be revisiting this question.
Apparently, yes, we will.
Huh.
So you wanted to start with something here. You asked last show that we were on together, you asked foolishly the general populace to suggest podcasts to you.
Yeah, and some interesting things happened. Like because I was asking for podcasts about video gaming that didn't have a political bent because I wanted to avoid certain aspects of politics.
Right.
And I got many, many recommendations, some of which were about what was my presumed political bent because I was anti-video game politics.
Mm-hmm.
So I was told to check out more than a few podcasts that are like, well, this is on the other side. And they're like news podcasts and stuff. And I'm like, that's not what I was looking for. I'm looking for fun.
Right.
Okay. Fun is the thing we used to have on the internet.
Go listen to Going In Blind.
Yeah. But, and I don't want role-playing game podcasts either.
Oh, right. That's right.
I wanted video games.
That's right.
But I did, in that pile, I am grateful to everyone, even the people who can't follow basic instructions. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Because God bless you, at least your hearts are in the right place. But I have a number of podcast episodes I have now downloaded from a couple of different recommendations. And as I listen to them over the next 2 weeks or so, I will come back and report on them. And then hopefully, if I can remember, thank the person who recommended them.
Good.
But for now, I just put them in my podcast app. I haven't had time.
For now, please stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Got enough for now. Yeah. So there's that.
Okay. Good. You'll have to let me know what you discover.
Yeah, will do.
Because I might want to listen to such a thing myself as well. And, since you're doing the research already, you can just share your findings.
I also did find an Elite Dangerously podcast.
Oh, good.
From a bunch of Irish people. I think they're Irish.
That's the best. That's the best.
So I can only understand every other word they're saying. And
yeah, I tend not to like to listen to Americans talk about video games that I'm interested in. If I have to listen to somebody go over the same thing 5 or 6 different times in 5 or 6 different podcasts, I'd like it to be somebody whose accent is interesting at least.
Right? And I'm not getting after the Irish. I love the Irish.
Yeah.
I love that entire side of my family. So
I hope you like the Irish.
Yeah.
Because if not, we're in trouble.
Well,
you and I.
Yeah, but you don't sound Irish.
You're right.
You sound like you're from the country of NPR. Wherever they get their people.
Fine. Dana wrote into the comments in episode 41? Really? Episode 41?
No, that might be a typo. It's probably a typo.
I suspect
on episode
it is.
40-something.
40-something.
49, likely.
Your discussion about the impossible cable for your car?
Yeah. Yes, the one that only has contacts on one side.
Correct.
Yeah.
Dana wants to know, is your one-sided lightning cable possibly a LMcable or variant that provides lightning, A for Apple, on one side and micro USB, M for micro USB, on the other? So that would explain your A and your M and why only half of it worked.
Well, now see this variant, because I don't have an Android device. I do have micro devices that no, I don't. I don't have any way to test that, but it doesn't appear to have anything on the other side. But it is labeled A&M. And I threw out the packaging, so I have no idea what the brand is.
You've clearly bought some sort of knockoff.
Yeah.
And it's faulty, and that'll teach you.
But that is possible. I have to look into that. I just don't how can that work?
I don't know, but there's a link to the Popular Mechanics article, which we will share with people about said thing that was provided to us by Dana.
See, so micro USB cables, are they not like chamfered on one side, and then they're hollow on the inside, and the contacts are on the inside?
Potato?
Or am I thinking of something different?
Well, all right. I don't know. I have always thought...
I have to go look at this cable now, seriously.
Yeah, I have always thought that USB cables, universally, whatever size they are, whatever dimensions they contain, have one side of the cable that is at some sort of an angle or contour compared to the other side. So they have a direction, no matter what you think, they have a direction that they go in and work in a direction which they do not work. In other words, they're keyed, okay? They're keyed to the slot is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
They're not, you can't just flip them over and they work. That's not a thing I'm aware of for USB cables of any shape or size. So I don't know. Apparently, is micro USB different? I don't know. Let me check my memory.
See, well, this is the thing. Like, originally I was just going to say flat out, no, it can't be because it doesn't have contacts on the other side. But now that I've looked really closely at this question, just now, I'm saying maybe it is because the contacts on a micro USB are not on the outside. They're in a hollow slot inside the connector.
Okay, I now am forced to take it all the things I said back about them not having they're just square. They're square slots, little thin square slots for the micro USBs. Are
they really?
Yep.
This is very strange. I have to look.
USB standard.
What do I have that can be powered with a micro USB?
I don't know. I don't live in your house.
I'm gonna like link something to it and then just get electrocuted. Is this a micro USB? Is this Bluetooth speaker charged on a micro USB? I think it is.
Huh.
Yeah, that's a micro USB.
Turns out I have never once in my life seen a micro USB on anything. Not a micro. See, what they've got is two different types. They have a micro USB A, so it's a micro A, and that's the square one. As near as I can tell, it's square from the photo.
Right.
And then they have a micro B, which is shaped and keyed to go in a certain way.
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of. It's chamfered on one side. The corners on one side are like angled. Yeah. So I don't know. Now I really have to go. Like, I wish I wasn't tied to my computer while I while we did
Yeah.
this, because I would actually, as exciting live reporting, I would walk down there with my phone
Yeah.
and check it out right then and there, and just stay on the air.
And then, of course, everybody's switching to USB-C for a lot of things.
I don't understand USB.
I'm not going to explain it.
Like, there's different versions of it.
There's
and
now,
those are numbered, and then there's different letters.
Yeah. There's two, what you get now is either a USB 2.0 or USB 3.0 are the things.
Mhm.
And the only immediate visual difference is that the USB 3.0s appear to have blue plastic inside.
Okay.
And the 2.0s have white plastic inside. I assume that means something. I'm told USB 3.0 is faster.
This kills me because the whole point of USB was that it would always and forever be the same. So that we didn't have to deal with, I only have a PS2 connector and this is this mouse has a serial bus or whatever, serial cable or whatever. And we would never have to deal with that because we switched to universal serial bus.
Important word in that sentence is universal.
Universal! And it was a lie. And I knew it was going to be a lie.
Yep.
And of course, friggin' Apple came along.
Yep.
No, that's not good enough for us.
There's Firewire, which stands for proprietary and money making.
Do you know? Okay, I know I'm probably late to this story.
Yes.
And I vaguely remember hearing about it.
Yes.
Allie recently got an upgrade to her iPhone.
Tiny, yes.
And she got, Tiny recently got an upgrade to her iPhone. And she got I can't remember which one. The 7 Plus?
Right.
Which apparently is an oversized iPhone.
Right.
Okay, it's like the Nintendo DS XL of iPhones. It doesn't have a headphone jack.
No, it doesn't.
Right, okay. And I had heard that story. I'm like, okay, that sounds kind of stupid, but whatever. But instead of having, so what I had thought was that they had different, because the woman said when we were picking it up, what do you do? Like, how do you put earbuds in it or headphones? And she says, there's earbuds in there. And I thought to myself, okay, so they changed their earbuds to use a lightning connector. So that and then I was mad because I'm like, that's stupid because then you can't charge the phone while listening to it.
You have spotted an error. You've reached the wrong conclusion, but you have spotted the correct error.
Right. The stupidity was they actually have an adapter in there that converts the lightning to a 3.5 millimeter audio jack.
Right.
Because they are so opposed to anyone building anything that could plug into an iPhone that isn't Apple.
You are
correct. I have nothing to say here other than that. It's like, because that's a mic drop statement right there. That's real, because that's the only reason for it.
Yeah.
There's literally no other reason for it.
Yep.
And I know, again, I'm late to this, but then I don't believe in buying. Like, first of all, I don't believe that a telephone is something that you have to keep up to date. Okay, that's the first thing. Okay, it's like when I was. Do you remember, like, when you were young and you had the phone in the house that was connected to the wall?
Right. Yes.
Right.
In fact, for the first few years of my life, the phone was actually attached to the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, like the jack was built right. You had a socket right in the wall, and then the phone would just hang over it on the two little screws.
Yep, I can show you the exact spot on our kitchen wall where the phone used to live.
Okay, how often did you buy a new phone?
Practically never.
Right, unless it broke.
Right.
Right.
I still have the phone we replaced that phone with. And
beyond that, like, so You have the like a phone in your pocket that makes phone calls and sends text messages and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It does all the things you could want it to do.
Right.
Everything you could want from a phone. And it searches the internet and it does your emails and all of that stuff. And it has a port that can communicate with the world. Right? Or 2 ports, maybe, even if it's not an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that you can hook it to different things and a Bluetooth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Barring major technological advancements like we invented Bluetooth,
mm-hmm.
there is absolutely no reason for a new version of a phone.
Nope.
None. Except to make people buy a phone every year.
Pretty much. Welcome to it. It's taken you this long to figure out how this works, huh?
No, I figured it out a long time ago, which is why I'm still on. I think I'm on a 6 now. My iPhone is a 6.
My iPhone wasn't purchased until 2 years ago, and it's an iPhone. What is it? The SE, the 5 SE or whatever it is.
Oh, so it's got like what the turbo and.
No, it's the small.
It's a V6
factor
engine instead of a V8 or V8 instead of a V6.
Right. And it's fine, and I'm happy with it, and I have no desire to upgrade to a slab of screen.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm still seriously thinking about getting a dumb phone.
I had a dumb phone for years.
I'm going back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm becoming a Luddite.
But it does. Literally the only reason I have a smartphone is so that I can receive and send email if I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and need to for some reason, or I can get a hold of somebody in an emergency.
Right, but if I need to get a hold of somebody in an emergency, I just call them, and if I can't get a hold of that person, I call 911.
Right.
Yeah, unless obviously assuming if your emergency is you're out of milk and you can't get a hold of like your boyfriend or your girlfriend, do not call 911. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, don't do that.
Okay, you also have to have a sense of perspective as to what is actually an emergency.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Having to make an extra trip for milk later, not an emergency.
Nope.
Imminent fire burning you to death, emergency.
Yeah. If you discover a man with sharks in his basement.
311.
Yeah.
Non-emergency services.
Non-emergency.
Just you got to get animal control there. Because that's what the police will tell you. There's a problem for animal control.
That's right. The only other thing I do with my phone is podcast stuff. I listen to podcasts on it. That's it. That's the only reason I have the dumb thing.
I like having a GPS in my phone.
I don't ever want to know where I am.
I like, I like that I can use it in the car to get directions to a place I've never been to.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I did recently, I do use it for health apps. Like I used to do the zombies run thing. And now that I can't run so much, but I'm bike riding, I found, what is this app?
Zombies Bike?
Road Bike Pro.
Mm.
It's done by Runtastic.
Okay.
So apparently the Runtastic people who make the Runtastic app decided to expand into other modes of self-propelled mobility.
Fair enough.
And so now they make a bike riding app.
Hey, makes sense to me. Anyway, all we're saying is Ludditism has a place.
Yes. What was the question?
I don't know. I don't know what you're
Where
doing.
are we?
I don't know what you're doing. Oh, that was the lightning cable. Yeah, okay.
Oh, good. We are just making great strides through this script.
Awesome.
Settle in, people. It's going to be another 3 hours.
Here we go.
Chris
Constantine. You sure that's not Constantine? Chris Constantine. That's what it says. Chris Constantine. Mm-hmm. Chris, if that is not your last name, speak to your email program.
Well, okay.
All right.
Chris, no last name given, has
yes. Chris of the dubious last name. This is something I'm in somewhat disagreement, but not totally. So seeing what you guys think. Something I'm in somewhat disagreement about, but not totally. So seeing what you guys think.
After reading this email, just to throw this out there, I suspect that Chris's first language may not be English.
Oh, Boy, are you going to be embarrassed if it is.
If Chris is smart, then
it suddenly is not. Yeah.
He will say, yes, that is true. No habla inglés.
Yeah. The original time I thought about...
Considering you can't even spell his last name right.
I know.
Sorry.
We're in trouble. The original time I thought about this was 3.5. I assume he means D&D 3.5. From summoning bears that outclass fighters to GMs getting cheesed when you use your familiar to give yourself a +2 bonus. I don't know why they would get cheesed about that. That was part of the function of familiars in 3.5.
Yeah, right?
But notice...
I'm so mad you're using a class feature that gives you a +2 bonus to give you a +2 bonus.
Right. But notice the similar issue, albeit lesser issue in 5e. Just ask about Beastmaster Ranger sometimes. I would, but I have no idea where that reference goes. 4e is where I got the idea that by building critters as part of the party, it cuts down a ton of logistical and balancing issues because it's based on the party, not an extension of a PC, and then having to try for game balance purposes. Summary of that paragraph, for those who didn't quite catch that. In 4e, he started considering that critters are part of the party and should be included in the logistics and balancing to make sure you have the right encounter balance.
I actually think that it goes beyond that, where it was better because 4e didn't really include pets and familiars until Player's Handbook 2, or even beyond then, because they couldn't figure out a good way to do it. But one of the things they did include in the Dungeon Master's Guide was a set of rules for building companion characters, which were like scaled down PCs. You know, it was a PC with like basically one interesting feature,
right,
that would fit in a monster stat block, and then adding them to the party as, you know, in case the party hired a hireling or had a pet or whatever. And they did the same with mounts. So mounts were built as monsters, but then they did affect the game balance, and the 4E DMG gave advice for how to figure that into the balance. So, you know, if you had a party of 4 players plus one of those companion NPCs, it was like a 4.5 person party.
Okay.
Which I had totally forgotten about until I read this email. So
Chris continues on. Most pets are PC oriented. I can't say that word. Oriented. Thank you. I realize what it says on the screen, but I don't acknowledge that as a real word.
That's why I pointed that out at the beginning, because I really don't want to get into making fun of this guy. And if they're just typos, I'm sorry.
No, and it's not just...
we're not making fun.
It's not just Chris. I don't accept that as a real word from anybody.
No, I understand. That's not coming up as a misspelling.
I know. Most pets are PC...
Is that one of those common use words now that
I'm
exists?
afraid so, yes.
Oh, I hate the world.
Most pets are PC-oriented. Your Druid Ranger spellcaster gets a pet that's theirs, but it has some serious problems. Number 1, you need to balance their action economy so it doesn't outperform a character's niche. Number 2, you don't always get the powers associated with the critter. Number 3, the pet becomes a liability the higher your level goes. I've always toyed with the idea that a PC should be considered a member of the party and a separate NPC. My logic is as follows. Number 1, it can be used as party mascot. Number 2, you should be able to level up the pet, making it easier for the DM to set encounters. Number 3, the pet can be used to fill a niche. Example, instead of a ranger, you got a German Shepherd with tracking. Number 4, they also make the best NPC companions because the GM cannot use them to dominate the party. What do you think, boy? Woof. I don't know. Number 5.
I'm terrified of GM PCs, and therefore we have to build a way to make it impossible in the rules.
Oh, okay.
Because some GMs do things bad, so we have to make that impossible for everyone. Even us good GMs who can use a companion NPC effectively to improve the game. Jerk.
Number 5. It's easy to extrapolate if you need to hire a companion and can use similar rules. I guess I'm wondering which is a better model and why.
Yeah. And man, did this question get my gears turning.
Uh-oh. Turning good or turning bad?
Turning good.
Oh, okay.
Because it really is, it is an interesting question. And it speaks to a bigger design flaw. Do you want to take a stab at anything before I launch into a spiel? Because I tend to launch into spiels, I know.
You may go for throttle up.
Okay. So, what if I'm understanding Chris's question correctly? Okay, you're looking at two approaches to the idea of building pets here. One is the current D&D model, which is pets are a class feature, right? So druids or rangers get animal companions, spellcasters get familiars, that kind of a thing. And in order to provide the proper balancing then, they are considered part of the class's damage output or skill set or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if other classes would get an extra proficiency in a skill, the ranger gets a pet who can pick one skill off a list. So they have the same number of skills. It's just that his lives in a pet. And whereas other classes get like the fighter gets an extra attack at this level and that level and that level to double, triple, and quadruple his damage output, the ranger gets the ability to act in tandem with their pet. So the pet becomes the embodiment of their extra damage, right?
Okay.
And that's sort of the D&D approach, is that pets are class features, and therefore it's a clump of the character that exists basically in a separate position on the battle map.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
And the problem, as has been rightly stated, the problem with that approach is that, number one, there is an action economy in the game, and this is beyond the action economy. Okay, this is actually the player turn economy, the spotlight economy, if you will. That is that essentially the player whose class feature includes a pet gets 2 turns in every encounter. And if turns take any length of time to resolve, then the effect on the game, even if we're not complaining about, it's not fair because he spends twice as much time in the game as I do. Even if we take that complaint out, you're still talking about increasing the amount of time it takes to resolve a combat as if you had added another player to the table. And if you've already got a loaded party, if you've got like a 5-person party and 2 of those people bring pets, now you're running a game for effectively 7 players whenever the action goes down into tactical mode. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the action economy issue. Even if you balance out all the other numbers so that like the ranger has less damage output on their own, unless they bring a pet, and then they have the right damage output for a character of their level. Even if you balance that out, there's still a time component that you're not fixing. Okay. On top of that, the other balance issue is that the pet is an option. Like, all rangers don't have to have pets. You don't want to force it on anybody, especially because it's added complexity for the class. So if you do link half the character's power to a pet, then you have to find some alternative option for the players who don't bring the pet along. The rangers who don't want a wolf. And then that creates this really weird artificial like schism in the class.
Mm-hmm.
And then he points out the pet becomes a liability as your level goes up. And that's because in general, pets don't level up as fast as the party. So they become more and more fragile in various encounters. And then like you have a situation where, a fighter's fighting ability can't die in the middle of a battle, but a pet can, which you could say, well, it could be balanced out by making pets stronger to compensate the weakness, but whatever. Okay. But what 4E started to do, if I'm recalling it correctly, and what Chris is talking about as the alternate option, was to say, what we actually need is not a specialized rule of pets for characters who have pets and make that live in the class features of certain things. Instead, what you need is to have a model for having companions in the party. Okay. Assume that any party in the world could have a pet, or could hire a companion, or even could hire like 5 companions, and build a set of rules for that And that would be better, but then you take away the option for, classes to be built around pets as a class feature, right?
Right.
Right? So this is the question, is which is the better model? And as I'm reading this and I'm thinking, yeah, definitely, I hate the idea of specialized rules as class features. I really do. I hate the idea of taking something that should be an option for everyone. That is, everybody in the world should have the option of getting a dog if they want one. Because that's a thing you can do, right? I mean, and I don't have to be able to train a dog to buy a hunting dog. I can buy one pre-trained. That's why castles had kennel masters, so that they would have trained hunting dogs on hand for when the king went on hunts.
Mm-hmm.
The king didn't have to be a dog trainer, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You can get a trained animal. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be an expert at training it to have it, right? Or else nobody could have a horse except for expert equestrians or animal husbanders, whatever you call it. What they should do, building on Chris's idea, is in the core of your game, build in the option for, this is how you handle companion characters. Okay? And you can make it something like, among other things, if you bring companion characters into a battle, they could even act as an XP sink. Meaning that instead of, you have 5 people and a pet, the animal eats up a share of the XP. That doesn't mean that it has to be leveled up. It just, that reflects, that right there allows for the combat balancing around XP. Right? Where now the party can handle more challenges in a day. So to compensate, they get a little less experience from every encounter, and then that keeps everything even, that kind of a thing. And then you build your, when you're building a challenge around an XP budget, you have to take the pet into consideration to do that. So you can do that easily enough. And you can even say, okay, companions are half characters or whatever. And you could even require you could have morale rules on top of that. Like, okay, if you bring a sentient companion, the companion wants an equal share of the treasure. And if they don't, they become disgruntled, and then you can deal with that. And once you put you can do whatever you want with it. But once you have those general rules for, this is what it would look like if any party had a friend or pet, or 2 or 3 or 20, however many they want to bring along, then you can build classes whose abilities don't allow you to have a pet, but they do modify that. Okay, there are certain options that you just can't have as a pet. No, you can't get a trained bear because there's no training a bear. But a ranger, if you have a ranger, he might just add the option of letting the party bring a bear along because he's, animal friend or whatever. Right? So his ability wouldn't allow him to have a pet. It would change the options available to the party as a whole as to what pets they could bring. Or he might be able to enhance the pet. He might be able to imbue pets with ferocity. Or enhance their morale if there's a morale system or whatever. And then you could build that into a whole bunch of different things. Like if someone has the noble background, then maybe NPC companions are less likely to be disgruntled, or they'll demand less treasure because, they're part of his retinue. Or you can have magic, if a wizard comes along, they can bond with an animal and make it a familiar and then see through that creature's eyes. So the party still has to bring the animal along and it still takes up that slot in the party. But the wizard can do something special with it. And that's what this got me all started thinking about.
Okay. I look forward to seeing this in the thing you're not working on. Oh, wait, that's an old joke, the thing you are working on.
Yeah. If I were writing an RPG.
Yes. The mechanics around familiars and companion animals and that kind of stuff have always been a bit sketchy because I think, like you said, they're they're always an afterthought.
That's, I think I was writing something else, and I mentioned the concept of afterthought mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I look at D&D in its various incarnations, especially the most modern incarnations, the more I realize how much stuff appears to be afterthought mechanics.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's not a fundamental issue of pre-design that just is not getting done. Okay. Like this is what I want to know. Okay. In my imagination, if I had a room full of game designers who were designing a new role-playing game, I would imagine that somewhere in the lead designer's office, somewhere hidden in his or her desk, there is a piece of paper that is a list of all the things we feel it should be possible to do in our game, okay? Which obviously because it's a role-playing game and very open-ended, yes, you can do anything. But I always assumed there should be a list of things that were important enough parts of the game that people would want to do, that the rules need to address them in some way. Have fights, have social interactions, sail a ship, mass combat, craft items, cast spells. And then you can go beyond that to, like political intrigue, have pets, and I am increasingly starting to believe that as much as I see that as like the perfect way to start building an RPG, I'm starting to believe that nobody has actually done that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it.
Right? And I would love to, what if you had to come up with a list? I would just love to sit 100 gamers in a room. 100 D&D gamers, just to not because D&D gamers are better, but just to limit, the scope of what we're talking about a little bit to fantasy adventure genre. I would love to just have everybody just throw out modes of play and things that could happen in the game and just write them all on a whiteboard. Naval combat, okay. Mass combat, or leading armies, sure. Having pets, crafting items, bringing back the dead, traveling to other planes. I would love to start there. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Then figure out how to integrate it all into some sort of cohesive whole.
Well, obviously then you have to look over because the brainstorming is just the first step, right? Because
Sure.
then you have to look over the list and say to yourself, okay, now which of these things count, and which of these things are like, yeah, that would be neat if, but, how central to D&D is traveling to other planes of existence, really?
Mm-hmm.
If you really sat down and thought, how often does it come up in people's games? And yet, how much page space do they burn on it?
Yeah.
Whereas now, how essential is a social interaction in which there is a challenge that the party has to overcome to the game, like a difficult negotiation or, a trial when they're falsely accused, or a hostage situation, or riddling or talking their way past a dragon or a guard or whatever. How important is that to the game? And how much page space has been burned on it, Because that's what you have to do then. You have to go through that list and find that balance of okay, now, how important is this? And then you can start to decide, okay, this is what our core mechanics have to cover. This is what we can, and have to cover it well enough that you can keep the rules for it in your head. And then you can say, okay, these are the optional mechanics. We have to cover them too, but we don't need super detailed rules, but the rules can't be so different that people have to look them up every time they do this. Because ironically, the stuff that doesn't come up the most often has to be the simplest stuff. And I think people get that backwards. Because, well, look,
That's a good point. It's a good point.
Grappling only comes up once in a rare while, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why the complex grappling rules were such a problem. It wasn't that they're hard to remember. Okay, the grappling rules in 3.5 were not terribly complicated, but they only got used once in a while or by one character, and they were only useful some of the time. So having a 5-step process to resolve grappling was a problem. The less frequently something comes up with, the easier it has to be to recall, or the more it has to hang off already existing mechanics. 4E did that right, because it said, okay, grappling is a strength check versus reflex, attack versus reflex, because that's how it handled everything. It's like, okay, that's really easy to remember, because it's the same way we resolve everything else that is one person trying to affect another person in combat. But that's the thing. The less likely something is to come up, the simpler it has to be. Or you need a really, really robust set of core mechanics that you can make very tiny modifications to do everything. And ability checks are a good example of that. You do anything in D&D, roll a d20, add an ability modifier, add proficiency, add circumstantial bonuses, compare it to a number. That's how you resolve every action, right? Everything else hangs off that in some way. So you wouldn't want to make, like if I was making a mass combat mechanic, I would not want to create, like each unit has an offense stat and a defense stat, and they roll a number of dice based on this against that and whatever, and completely change the rules of action resolution. I would want it to be action resolution. And I wouldn't want to create new stats because it doesn't come up with often enough that people are going to remember 6 different stats. And if I knew I was going to build mass combat as an occasional option into the game, then I would look at the stats that mass combat needed and say, can I make the character stat? Can I make my core stats the stats that would also work for mass combat? Like instead of giving characters strength, dexterity, yada, 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 maybe I give the characters, I call their stats offense and defense. So that then when I make my mass combat units, they're using the same words. And they're resolving their attacks the same way. But again, this is just how I would do it if I was designing an RPG, and we got way off track.
That never happens.
I'm so sorry. Also, cut all of this in post. Everybody who's listening to this podcast, right? I need you to write out a non-disclosure agreement and email it. No, I don't care. If anybody wants to build on these ideas, please build on these ideas. I think they're good ideas.
All right.
But I'm starting to realize that no matter how much time they say they spent on design and playtesting and whatever, it's all really haphazard. I think they start with questions like what classes do we need in the player's handbook this time? Right? And there's so many assumptions built into that.
Maybe
they never look at anything else.
Maybe the reason it takes them so long and they have to spend so much time is that they're doing it wrong. I don't understand why they are still arguing about what a ranger is. What do people want out of the ranger? And every time they release something, half the people say, I don't want this. You know what that's a sign of? That's a sign of the ranger can be anything you want. Pick a definition and go with it. And yes, some people are going to be unhappy with the ranger. So then they'll play druids instead. Oh, no.
Okay. The problem is because you keep changing the answer. So now nobody knows what to expect. If you just took a side and said, okay, this henceforth in the D&D universe is what a ranger is. Don't like it, play a different class. Instead of trying to keep rewriting the class. And it's like, well, maybe this one will make everybody happy.
I have things I could say.
In case if anybody's wondering, if there's a topic we really want to discuss that we don't discuss in an episode, we do just push it off to the next episode. We do have a vague list of topics that we would like to come up.
Right.
But we don't let them dictate where the conversation goes.
Correct.
Like everything before feedback is generally white space.
Yep.
We have a note. It's like called, Brian's week or Scott's week or catching up or something. Mm-hmm. And then we just babble.
So in episode 52, sir.
Yeah.
Episode 52 notes, we will need a line that says every class should be played equally Meanwhile, Joe Reed wrote in by email. He said you responded to a question about whether a rule set can include guidelines to assist in homebrewing. You concluded the answer to this question is a modular game like GURPS or Big Eye Smallmouth. You're not wrong, but I think you missed something. Brian almost hit on it when he said, as long as you understand the rules well enough, you can homebrew anything. This is what makes homebrewing D&D as difficult as it is, and what makes Scott's site so amazing. It can be hard to understand how all the little rules fit together. We just covered some of this. Anyway, but the best thing a game creator could do if they want to encourage homebrewing would be to teach the GM why the game works, to include notes and sidebars about why the designers chose this rule over that rule, and how the GM can tweak them for different effects. Pathfinder Unchained does a pretty good job of this to help the GM decide which optional rules to use. Fate, despite not being a real RPG, peppers this concept everywhere and calls them dials, as in you can tune the dials to get the feeling or effect you want from the game. This would obviously add a whole layer of work to the book. Do you think it would be too much work for the benefit average GMs would get out of it? Is there another downside to opening the code of the game like this? I remember a game that attempted to do this. I believe it's called Fifth Age.
Sounds familiar.
It's as I recall, it's one of those games I have frequently said has the worst designed book I've ever seen. Because the creators seem to engage in this sort of rabbiting back and forth commentary, taking little pot shots at each other, and
Oh, are you thinking of 13th Age?
Oh, 13th Age. There you go. 13th Age. Yeah,
Do you know, before we go any further, I learned something recently, and we may owe an apology.
No.
To the designers of 13th, a little bit of one.
All right, what?
A little bit of, okay, fair enough.
All right, what?
We have made endless fun of the layout design of that book.
Uh-huh.
I heard recently, and I can't remember the source, so this might be nothing. I heard recently that immediately before their release, their layout files and all the work they had done for layout was destroyed in a fire.
Really?
And they were left basically at the 11th hour with nothing.
Really?
Now, it still seems to me that a company that has a major project release like that, all their work should have been, protected in some way from being destroyed in a fire. I don't want to let anyone off the hook completely, because first of all, I cannot remember the source for this, and I might be wrong. And it still seems that some poor decisions were made.
Right.
If there was no backup of this stuff. If it was only on site in one location that could be destroyed by a fire.
Right.
But if so, I am prepared to put an asterisk next to my personal opinion of 13th Age as the worst laid out book ever designed. And I forgot to tell you, I had just heard this recently from someone, and now I can't remember. Now I can't remember who told me and where it came from, but if that's true, what a shame.
I will grant you that if it is true, that is a shame. But I still think that I don't care 11th hour or not, as a creator of a thing, you sort of have to make the hard decision there.
Yeah. About
maybe the 11th hour suddenly becomes the 9th hour.
Yeah,
and you add 2 hours later.
Right, but the problem is you don't know what sort of contracts had been signed, and that maybe that choice, the choice to go with the layout they did, was the least of all the evils, and it might have been the choice of, or else we don't release this product at all.
Okay, all right.
I mean, you never know.
Still no excuse for having creators bickering with each other in the sidebars.
Oh, no, I agree. That's awful. Funny as hell, but awful.
Yeah. So anyway, my point was 13th Age, they did attempt that sort of thing. Kind of. A little bit.
Yeah, but is that what they were trying to do?
I don't know.
Like,
because it reads as if, well, so and so didn't take my ideas properly into consideration, so here they are for you.
There was one big one too. Mm-hmm. I think it was like on backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was on the one unique thing where they went back and forth for a page and a half before they said, so finally we compromised on this approach.
Right.
It's like, so shouldn't that have been the only paragraph?
You would think so. Yeah, it was questionable at best, the way they went about that. So there's something I can, this is not exactly what the question is here, what Joe's talking about. But there is something to be said for having some information there to help understand why a particular thing was done the way it was versus some other way. But I think that should be a unified discussion about it, so that you're just presenting the sort of the majority voice,
right,
rather than all the individual side cases and whatnot. Because it makes doing it that way makes it look like the overall design is pretty sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it does.
Anyway,
well, okay.
What thinkest thou?
Let me throw this out at you just to see what you think of this.
Okay.
Obviously, not everybody is going to homebrew, and not everybody is even interested in writing their own game content.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And let's just assume that homebrewing is just like advanced designing your own content. Okay, so there's like levels you can go. You can build your own encounters, you can build your own adventures, you can tweak the rules, you can homebrew, right? All of that is designing your own game for the system, right? Just in different levels of severity.
Right.
Okay. So obviously for the GMs who don't want to do that, they don't want to write their own adventures. They don't want to, design their own rules or homebrew or tweak or anything else. All they need to know is how to play the game, and then they need a game to play, a published module or whatever.
Right.
Right. But what if role-playing games did what video game console manufacturers do?
On disc DLC?
No, yeah, well, that would be... That's good, too. I'm going to write that down, but... there's a section of the rule book that has a sticker sealed on it. That you're not allowed to open until day one. But no, okay. No. Here's the idea. A dev kit.
Oh.
Okay. You sell or offer to companies that want to publish for your game at a discount or as a freebie your adventure writing and game design manual. It includes all the little tools, like here's a whole list of monsters and here's magic items and stuff that you can add. And it also includes rules for like, okay, this is how you balance encounters and the structure of an encounter and all of that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And it also includes the discussion on why the game is designed a certain way. Like, don't ever break this rule. Like, this rule is one you should never tweak because it would screw up the entire structure of the game. Like, I can't think of an example in D&D. If you break, like, damage progression. In D&D 5th edition, the primary expression of growing power is damage output. And it doubles, triples, quadruples at particular levels in the game. You can see that if you look in the rules. It doesn't say it explicitly, but at some point the designers decided that in order to hit their goal of bounding the accuracy of the game, they said, okay, we're going to use damage as the expression of power. Well, that's the sort of thing you tell your game designers, the people who are writing adventures. It's like, listen, if you're going to give bonus damage, understand there is this sort of hidden level progression as to how much damage output characters should have and break it at your peril. So at 5th level, don't ever give more than this much bonus damage. If you're designing a magic item, Don't let it give extra attacks unless it's at least this level or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is dev kit. Home GMs could buy it. It would be like the equivalent of you buying, your monster manual and your DM's guide. But it's the guide to building content, including home brewing your game. And then all the GMs who have no interest in that, they don't have to read all the rules about encounter building and encounter balancing and why damage progression is the most important thing in your game and can't be broken. And they don't need a tome of monsters because they're never going to use that unless they want to start tweaking the game for themselves. How does that sound?
That sounds good. I like that.
Yeah.
Somebody should do that.
Yeah, if I were writing an RPG.
Oh.
No, it is seriously one of the things that I've been thinking about is how to, because here's my thing. I'm tired of buying stuff I don't need.
Right.
Okay, and there's a lot of fatigue about that. Like if you look at a lot of the comments on Xanathar's Guide to the Mordenkainen's Tome of Everything of Foes or whatever.
Written by Volo.
Right? A lot of the critiques were, this book is a hodgepodge of some monsters and some lore and some player stuff and whatever. Everybody is tired of buying stuff they don't need. I know there are DMs out there who are sick of having to buy the monster manual to run a published adventure. I'm one of them. I know that there are GMs out there who are sick of buying, these books that are supposed to be filled with, monsters and discovering that half the book's content is given over to class options they'll never use.
But I don't understand. How are you supposed to make all the monies?
Because if you're selling to people stuff that they learn is only stuff that they actually need, then they don't get fatigued buying your stuff. They don't get worn out buying every supplement. So yeah, you're sacrificing some short-term sales, but in the long term, you're building customer loyalty. So yeah, maybe the GM, the homebrewing GM is not going to buy your next book of player options. They don't want it. They don't care about it. But when you come out with the the game design toolkit 2, they'll be like, well, I've exhausted all the possibilities I can with this book of monsters and game design tricks and whatever. Let me see what's next. And in this day and age where shelf space is much less of an important concern,
right?
Because almost everything is bought online anyway. You can get away with that,
Okay.
Because all you need people to buy in the store is the game that teaches them where to get all the other stuff. It's like, okay, you played my basic game. Now you can buy this add-on by visiting my website or whatever. But that's all other theory. For right now, my idea is, what about dev kits?
We held this over from last show you and I recorded.
Yeah, it's sort of a follow-on topic.
Yeah. Regarding the current one, I don't know about the current, but regarding the responsibilities, I suppose, of gamers towards their community.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have some sort of a duty to the community? Do we owe a duty to the community? What do we owe to the community as gamers? Go.
It's such a tricky premise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because there's so many assumptions wrapped up in that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that it's, first of all, I have been thinking about this question for days.
Okay.
Okay, because I knew you wanted to discuss it.
Sure.
And there's a lot boiling in my head.
Uh-oh.
Because, so here's the first problem I have. What we're asking is essentially a moral question.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
About a game of pretend elves that is a commercial product.
Right.
Okay. At the end of the day, that's all it is. there's no more weight on it than that.
Uh-huh.
Right?
I mean, that on the face of it, that sounds right. Yes.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm sorry. No matter how much you might love this game, and how much you think it has enhanced your life, you know, friendships and fun and whatever else. Okay, it's no better than anything else out there.
Right.
It's no better than board games, video games, comic books, whatever.
Are you sure?
Whatever else you do for yeah.
How do you know?
What do you mean? How do I know?
How do you know it's not better than everything else out there?
Well, I just mean in terms of it's not on any sort of higher plane than anything else. It's got to be considered that same way.
Okay.
Okay.
I will tentatively accept your premise for now.
Okay. You go out, you buy this board game. Let's start with a board game. Okay. I go out, I buy a board game. I'm entering into a very simple transaction. I give a company $50. They give me a game they have designed. Right? Done and done. I then go home, and because I have bought the board game, I play it with my friends as much as I want, or as little as I want. Right? And that's it. At that point, everything that we have both agreed on, me and company, has been taken care of. Our promises to each other, our contract has been fulfilled. I gave them the money. They gave me the game to do with as I please. Right?
Okay.
Well, if a company is expecting more out of you than that, then they have to state that up front. Otherwise, it's a hidden cost.
Okay.
Right? And if you're expecting more out of it than that, then you're basically it's the opposite. I don't know what the term is for when a customer is demanding more of a company than the original transaction. Either way, you're going in with a hidden cost, ulterior motive. Right? The idea that we are discussing a moral duty to a purchased entertainment product is a very hard stepping stone for me to get over. Because when I do start to think of it, I start to analyze it, I keep coming back to that whole, all I did was buy a game. Okay. And that's all I wanted. I bought a game to play it with my friends. Right. And you can even go so far as to say, yeah, but if you don't support the community and the community falls apart, then you won't be able to play any more games, or they won't make any more games. And I will counter with, my copies of the game are not going anywhere. I will always be able to play the game. And they say, well, where will you find people to play? And I will respond, I will find people to play where I have always found people to play. I will go to my friends and family and say, I have this fun game. Come over and play it. And they will never make another game. The company will go out of business. Number one, not my problem. I already have the game. So I don't need them to not go out of business. And number two, if they are so all-fired concerned about going out of business, if I don't pay them more or do something else for their game, that's their problem. They need to figure out a better way to run their business. All right? It's never like, I cannot think of any other company in the world that would expect people to, by virtue of purchasing their product, become their advertising and marketing team. Yeah, a lot of companies rely on word of mouth. If you like a product, they want you to talk about it. But that's not an expectation. There's no contract you sign. And no, you don't owe it. This is the thing. The gaming community is not a thing. I'm sorry. There's not like a community. There's not this big culture, this monolith of the gaming community. What the gaming community is a bunch of people who have one interest in common who talk to each other. Except nowadays, that all they do is fight because one interest in common is no longer enough to be friends. Now, in order to be friends with someone, you have to agree with their views on absolutely everything.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that got emotional fast.
Before we head off in that direction.
Yeah, you're right. Back to, okay, I'm sorry. Do you hear where I'm coming from, though?
I sort of hear where you're coming from, and I have questions.
Okay.
Because that is my function.
Yeah.
Is to question things.
Basically challenge me.
Right.
I notice you always let me talk first. Let me go into a rant, and then you just beat my argument down.
It's more fun that way. No, because I want to clarify things for people who are listening as well as for myself.
Okay.
So I try to think of, the counters and whatnot, and which is hard to do because more often than not, we're kind of coming from the same place.
Yeah.
But here, I've got some stuff for you. Kids' cartoons should be educational.
Why?
I don't know. Somebody decided that was the case.
Who decided that?
In fact, well, for one thing, the various people who helped kill off Saturday morning cartoons.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And why did they decide that?
Because a lot of cartoons were just commercials.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a form of entertainment with a moral position?
No.
No?
No.
No. Why no? Tell me why no.
That is a form of entertainment that took a business position in response to a moral argument being leveled against it. Okay.
How does that
work? What actually changed cartoons was parent groups, especially mothers groups, lobbying the government and saying, these cartoons are doing this terrible thing. They're trying to sell our kids products. They're not providing any content of value, which we can argue as to whether or not that's a good argument or not. I personally do not agree. Because interestingly enough, I remember that every toy commercial cartoon I grew up with always ended with the main character of the show coming on and offering a moral message that had come out of the episode. I learned more about honor, duty, responsibility, and loyalty from He-Man than I have ever learned from anything else. Because He-Man, Prince Adam would always come on at the end and say, boy, we sure had fun today, didn't we? But we also learned an important lesson about, being true to your friends and being loyal and standing up for them, whatever. Right? But anyway, so parent groups were lobbying government officials to impose regulation on the cartoon makers. Cartoon makers, they did not want regulation because that would affect their bottom line. And then maybe there would be something, a terrible law would come down to say, if you have a children's cartoon, you cannot sell toys at all. You can never so that there's no advertising, which would affect them badly. So they looked around and said, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll add value. We'll add educational value to these cartoons, and we'll make them better for the parent groups before the regulation comes in so that we don't lose more than we want to lose. And so they could still be glorified toy commercials as long as they could include enough of a message to appease the people arguing. The companies did not make a moral decision. They made a business decision that was being forced on them, okay? And that's almost always how it works. I think I actually had a very similar discussion in the comment section of the last episode we discussed, because someone was pointing out my hypocrisy in saying that companies can't be moral and then complaining about Dell's treatment of me and accusing me of boycotting Dell. Like, these are two different things here. And so there's a longer speech on that. Okay. But that's the point. The company made a business decision to protect their position as best they could from what they saw as pending regulation. That's the comics code too. That's exactly what brought about the comics code in the 50s. Was they did not want regulation to come in and say what they could and couldn't write, so they imposed their own code on themselves.
So we need to threaten some sort of legal or political action against the game companies in order to get them to improve their products in a more agreeable way. Something that makes it that makes our moral imperative for what goes on in games and what we owe each other in the gaming community something they have to respond to in a product shifting way in order to avoid the legal ramifications of what could happen.
Not necessarily. I mean, the concept of a boycott is also turning a moral imperative into an economic incentive.
Mm-hmm.
We don't like that this company is taking this position or doing this thing. Therefore, we will stop doing business with the company until it changes what it's doing. The company can look at how that affects sales and say, okay, this is having an economic impact on us. We will make this decision. It's like, I mean, for example, if you didn't like what Wizards of the Coast was doing about a certain thing, and you could convince enough people to do it, you'll stop playing D&D. Right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, let's say hypothetically they came out with a new edition, let's say 4th edition of the game, and enough people didn't like it, and so they shifted to a competitor's product, a competitor that was doing a product that they liked a lot more, to the point where the competitor who had not existed previously ended up with approximately 50% of Wizards of the Coast marketing share. So that 2 or 3 years later, Wizards of the Coast says, okay, it's time to scrap this edition nobody likes, win back our support by making something that's more true to the game that people want, hypothetically.
Right. Just to pull an example at random.
Right. To pull an example at random. Okay. This is the essence of voting with your dollar. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have to draw a line here. We have to draw a line between the fan community and the company that makes the product. Okay.
I'm not sure we can do that. Because
used to be able
because necessarily by using that company's product, you endorse what that company does.
I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree that any consumerism is endorsement, because that's absurd. You know, I have no, like, I don't know what a company. Yeah, no, I'm not even. That's a whole separate argument. You know, that's like retweeting as endorsement and all that crap. Okay.
Right. Okay.
But no. What I mean is, it isn't a company's best interest to create the game that their fandom wants to play, right? Because that's the one that will sell.
Right.
And if they stray too far from that, I mean, and sometimes they like. If they stray too far from that, the company will go out of business because people won't buy their game as long as there's a competing product. Except in some cases, a company can elect to abandon one fan base for another. When the Nintendo Wii came out, this was a move that Nintendo made. They were losing their core fan base of gamers. And so they rebranded themselves as the game for the whole family, which was something that they were always fairly close to anyway. And so the Nintendo Wii invented an entirely new fan base of, you know, getting your mom and dad to play Wii bowling. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So, but, you know, and the only reason I bring that up is because if I don't bring it up, someone will in the comments and say, sometimes they can shift away from their customers. It's like, yes, absolutely. Okay. And sometimes a community, a company will decide that they do not like the fan base that they have and will try to shift away from it. We're seeing that a lot now, and there's a lot loaded into that. So I'm just going to say some companies will do that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that is rarely an economic decision. That is usually more of an image decision. I mean, that's still economic because the company will fear that with a bad image, they won't sell as many products, but it's that's a whole other thing. But we do have to separate the fan community from the company, okay? The community is not the company. The community is the people who have one shared interest and decide to all be friends with or try to be friends with each other based on that shared interest. And that's all that is. Okay, this is no different than the Star Wars fans. Okay, it's It's just a bunch of people who like Star Wars and are interested enough in Star Wars to spend their time online talking about it and hanging out with other people who like Star Wars and organizing events together and just enjoying Star Wars. That's what the community is.
Yeah. Some games are intended to be educational.
Yes.
As a member of the gaming community, do I have a responsibility to support educational games in particular?
Do you want educational games?
I don't know. People make them. Sometimes they do well, sometimes they don't.
Okay.
But is a game necessarily better because it's trying to be educational about something? And keep in mind, when I say educational, I'm not talking about learning your ABCs and, 1, 2, 3s or your school educational necessarily. They can be that. Some games are very clearly about, teaching history a little bit, and some games are very clearly about teaching word construction and that kind of stuff. And some games are very clearly about science and math and whatever. But there are other games that are also attempting to be educational about points of view, about political stuff. Like Monopoly, it was because originally developed was about the distribution of land and wealth. It was trying to educate people about that.
Well, one could argue that it was actually originally more propaganda than education.
Well, okay. Yes, one could argue that. One could argue that same thing about mini games, which supposedly are educational.
Absolutely.
Okay. Even the more traditionally educational games could have that argument made about them.
Right.
Okay. But that aside, disregarding whether it's propaganda or proper educational or what the difference is between that, because that's not a distinction I want to play with right at the moment, because we'll go all over the place on that. But
okay.
But in the general broad category of educational, in one way or another, is there something about not only the moral stance a company would take in making a game like that, but also in the moral stance that members of the community would take in supporting or not supporting that?
So you have a company. So there's two companies. Company A and Company B. Company A makes a game about going into underground labyrinths, killing monsters, and stealing their stuff. It's basically about violence, theft, and murder hobos.
Right.
And it essentially has no redeeming value.
Okay.
It is just pure popcorn entertainment. It's just for fun. I'm not saying it's bad, mind you. I'm just saying it exists purely for visceral entertainment.
Okay.
And then you have Company B, and Company B is making a game about moral values and responsibility. It's making like The Good Place the game. Okay. Right? Now, you have $20 in your pocket. You can afford to buy either game. Right? You are just looking for a game to play with your friends. And you would certainly be more entertained by the popcorn game.
Right.
Slay monsters, take their stuff. But the other game is better for the market because it provides redeeming value and education. Right? You only have $20. You're going to buy one game. If you buy the popcorn game, are you a bad person? Because that's the argument you're getting really close to.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, no, you're not a bad person. You're a person who has made a choice.
Right.
All right. But in the gaming community, there are any number of people who will argue that you should have purchased the game with redeeming values.
There are also people who argue that you should buy orange shag carpeting.
Right.
Right? That doesn't make it, just because someone will argue it doesn't make it right.
Right. But keep in mind here that this discussion is not about what I would or wouldn't do. This discussion is about the community and what you may or may not owe to it. Now, granted, for me, you buy whichever game pleases you most. Okay?
Right.
Good, bad, indifferent, whichever game pleases you most. But a significant section of the community will walk up to you and say, you shouldn't have bought that game. You should have bought this one over here that does all these great things and will make the world of gaming much better and much more even, much more responsible and much more significant, I guess, is the word I'm looking for.
Right. But so
do I owe it to the community to buy the game that's going to make it better for producers?
No, absolutely not. Because here's the thing. Okay. First of all, let's talk about this idea of membership in the community.
Okay.
So let us imagine there is actually such a thing as the gaming community.
Okay.
How did you join up?
I bought a game.
Right. So automatically when you purchase a game, you are now a member of the gaming community.
Or I went to Board Game Geek and started talking about games.
Okay. And now you are a member of the gaming community.
Or I sat down at somebody else's table and played their game once.
Okay. And now you are a member of this chimerical gaming community.
Okay. Those are all the examples I can think of right at the moment.
Right. In return for this purchase, you are now automatically a part of an organization that you had previously never heard of that has some sort of ability to impose moral duties on you. You have accepted that contract without even knowing you've accepted it.
Sure.
Simply by virtue of buying this board game.
Oh, absolutely.
Now there are people who have the right to tell you how to spend your $20.
Oh yeah, that must be the case because that's what happens.
Okay.
You've seen it and I've seen it. People.
Oh yes, I have seen it.
Get lined up and say, "Oh, that's a bad game. You should not buy that game."
Those people are morons. I'm sorry. Those people are incorrect. I mean, look, here's the thing. This is America. Okay? Free speech in America. I know the rest of the world has given up on it, but we still have that here. Somebody can walk up to me and say whatever they want. They can have whatever opinion of choice I have made in my life. They're allowed to say it. I am allowed to laugh in their face and discount their opinion as the meaningless prattle of a disordered mind.
Well, then you're not a member of this community and I should exclude you from it.
Yeah, well, okay, so how do we do that now? Okay, so now you're not a member of the community, okay, because you bought the popcorn game, right?
Okay.
So now the segment of the community that feels that you should be ostracized for your terrible morality decides you need to go from the community. Your membership to this it's an automatic membership, right? You bought a game, you're a member of the community. Or you talked about games, you're a member of the community.
Right.
Whatever. But now that is being rescinded from you. Okay? There's two problems with that.
Only two.
Number one, yeah, well, okay, there's an infinite number of problems, but there's two major problems. Number one, you were never a member of anything to begin with.
No, but I was, because I bought a game and now I'm part of the community. I'm game curious and now I'm part of the game curious community.
What does that mean, that you're a member of the community?
Well,
do you have a vote in community votes?
Well, I get.
Do you pay community dues?
But I can. The thing is that.
Do you get to go to community events that are exclusive only to members of the community?
But now wait a minute here. Wait a minute here.
What, like, are you going to bring up conventions that you can pay to get into no matter who you are? Do you have to be a member of the game community to go to, or to walk into a game store? That's problem number one, is you can be ostracized from the community, but you're being ostracized from nothing.
Okay.
Number two, something freely given has no real value anyway. Okay, you didn't know you were a member. Like, you go into the game store, you buy a board game, and then all of a sudden, pow, you're a member of the gaming community. Right? Okay, fine. And now the community decides, Nah, never mind. You're not a member because you don't make the purchases we like. So what? Like, did you actually lose anything there? You lost membership in a thing you never joined that doesn't exist.
But all my gaming community friends.
Well, now, wait a minute. Are they friends or are they part of the community?
Yes.
No. This is the thing. You are now mistaking a bunch of people with one shared interest for automatic friends. And that's not how friendship works. That's not what friendship is. You're not friends with the community. Okay? That's the issue. Like, if you're out of the gaming community, you haven't lost anything. Because they're not your friends. They're just people who have the same fandom as you. And you can go just right on tomorrow. I don't even know how else to explain this. It's not a community. It's not a circle of friends. It's just a group of people who have a shared interest, who talk to one another. Maybe. And some of them don't even talk to one another. There's people in the gaming community you don't like, right?
Sure.
And you don't talk to them.
Right.
Right? The subset of the people in the gaming community you do talk to are your friends, right? Do they stop being your friends?
Well, I mean, maybe they do. Look, I can't risk it. I have few enough friends.
Yeah, fair enough. Some of us don't have that problem, though. No, but
nobody in this show.
Yeah, it's like, here's the thing. You cannot have, like, in terms of, we're talking about an entertainment product here, right?
Right.
We're not talking about you being a part of, say, an organized society, okay? Like, so you cannot have a moral duty imposed on you that you did not accept. Like, I mean, yes, there is such a thing as a social contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's also there's the bigger social contract of you were born into civilized society. There are certain rules you have to follow, or else you lose all of the benefits of civilized society.
Right.
Up to and including the protection of all of your human rights.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's fine. Okay. But you have a duty to the community insofar as you accept that, first of all, that you accept that duty. And second of all, that the benefits you get from being a part of the community, whatever you think they are actually worth anything to you. So if there is a big group of gamers out there who you like talking to, and they say thou shalt only spend thy money on educational games, and you violate that covenant, then you will lose that circle of people and whatever benefits you think you're getting from them. But is that a moral duty? Or is that just, I mean, oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
Is contractualism actually a rule of morality? It's what this really comes down to. But I don't want to do that.
Okay.
Okay. The point is, okay. The point is very simple. You are a member of the gaming community insofar as you self-identify as a member of the gaming community. Okay. You can't be kicked out of the gaming community because because that doesn't mean anything. Okay. Other members of the gaming community, whatever that means, could decide they don't want to talk to you anymore because you have made decisions they don't like. Okay. But it's at that point where the meaninglessness of the game community becomes apparent. Until then, am I making sense?
No, I get your point. You didn't pay the dues. You're not in the community.
Right. Well, because there's no community. It's the community. It's what's the term for it? I'm trying to think. So when you you fill the sink with water and then you open up the stopper and then there's a spiral, there's a whirlpool, right? Is the whirlpool really a thing? It's just the shape of the water moving. Right? That's all the gaming community is. It's just, if you look at the group of people who play games from a certain angle, it looks like there's this thing there. Based on people communicating with people.
Okay.
But it's not any more real than that. And it shows that reality the minute people try to speak for the gaming community as if it can do anything. Okay, like when people say, okay, so the gaming community has decided you must be ostracized because you bought the game you wanted instead of the game that was good for it, right? I mean, that's at least the idea, right?
Right.
Well, wait, how did the gaming community cannot make a decision? It's not an entity that makes a decision. It's a collection of people. So what really made that decision? What's really ostracizing you? Every member of the gaming community? Did they unanimously vote? Is there a leader? It's not even meaningful to talk about a pile of people that you have organized into a category as making a decision, because they didn't. Some members of the gaming community would like to not deal with you anymore, and so they wield this identity of the community as a club, as if it's something that can be taken from you, like it's a weapon. But that doesn't make it real.
So then we have a problem, you and I.
Do we?
We do.
Why?
It's a mutual problem. It's not that we're opposed to each other. We have a mutual problem.
And that is?
And that is that there are a number of voices who claim to speak for the gaming community, or at least have been taken by people outside of the gaming community as the voice of the gaming community. Do they all speak for you and I?
No.
Then how can we get them to stop pretending they do?
We can't. I mean, conceivably we could, but not in any ways I feel morally good about.
Oh, okay.
Like, we could go start cracking skulls. Okay, but I don't feel that that's a good thing to do, especially over a game of pretend elves. Okay, what you're talking about is the image of gaming, right? It's like you want to present this image of gaming to the world, right?
Right.
Okay, fine. So that's not the same as the community.
But it is. Those outside the non-existent gaming community take those voices from those people as being the voice of the community.
Okay.
And that is pretended to have represented everybody in the community, even though at the same time, people in the community will tell you that there are people in the community that shouldn't be in the community because they don't agree with the rest of the community that doesn't exist.
And because the community is not a monoculture and nobody is going to agree on everything anyway.
Right.
Okay. All right. So let's drill down here. What's your real problem here?
My real problem is that the community, quote unquote, has been saying things with which I do not agree under the guise of representing my interests in the community.
So?
So?
Okay, hold on.
Yes.
I understand. There's two statements there. People are saying things you don't agree with, to which I say, tough, suck it up.
Right. I'm fine with that.
Okay, because
I'm used to people not saying,
to.
Yeah, I'm used to people not saying things I agree with.
Right.
I'm on the internet.
Right. But the second thing, and misrepresenting them as your opinions,
Aha. That bugs
Right?
me.
Yeah, okay. I bet it does. And now people have come to you and said, hey, as a gamer, I guess you believe this thing. Is that true, Brian?
See, here's where this falls down a little bit because nobody ever does that.
Right. See, here's the thing is if you want me to get all worked up about something and say that you have been wronged, I am one of those old school traditionalists who wants to see some sort of demonstrable harm.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, like I would like to know how a certain member of, let's say a certain YouTuber says something that they believe all gamers feel, and you don't feel that way. And you feel that statement is the opposite of what you believe. And you as a gamer now feel you've been misrepresented, right? I want to know how that has hurt you.
Because maybe the next time I run into somebody who's interested in the gaming community, they'll have heard the thing this other person said and be making the assumption that I, because they never bring it out in public, can directly address.
Okay.
They might be thinking that is me that has been spoken about.
Okay. So you are complaining that you cannot control the thoughts of other people?
Yes.
People are going to think things about you. Okay. I mean, this is the thing. People are going to look at you based on everything they see of you, you know, how tall you are, your apparent ethnicity, the clothing you wear, where you are, what you're doing at the time. They're going to make assumptions. Everybody does that until they turn into actions against you or for you or whatever. There is nothing you can do to control them, and they have done you no harm.
Okay, so this voice goes out there and it says a thing, right? I really like games that are about what?
Okay, all gamers like killing puppies.
Right, okay.
Okay. All gamers like killing puppies. I am a gamer. I am the YouTube gamer. I have 1 million subs, and I have gone out and saying, gamers love killing puppies. We need more puppy killing games.
Right.
Fine. And now someone in your life hears you are a gamer. Right? Okay. Go ahead.
Right. But worse, I mean, okay, so we've handled that aspect. It's like, who cares what they think? Because it's
right.
Whatever.
They think you're a puppy killer.
They think I'm a puppy killer. Okay, whatever. So, but the important thing about this is now the gaming companies, the companies that make the games, they say, oh, they like killing puppies, do they? So now all our games are going to be about killing puppies. And that becomes, you know, all the companies have now puppy killer games coming out of various sorts. You know, match the two halves of the puppy, you know, lay down various puppies in an arena and then fight the puppies together, and then you know, all them things, tile laying puppies and auctioning puppies and, you know, that kind of stuff. All right.
Okay.
They do.
You are really relishing coming up with examples here.
I am. It's fun.
It distresses me a bit.
Now, okay. So, So now all of a sudden there's this, you cannot get games that aren't somehow about killing puppies by and large, because certainly not good ones, because all the good ones are about killing puppies, because that's what the gaming community was told that, you know, they liked.
Hold on a second. That's what the companies think the gaming community told them.
Right. That's what the companies think the gaming community wants, because somebody spoke up and said a thing.
Right. Well, now here's the question. Okay. So the first question, if we're God, we're objective, we're outside.
Hooray.
Okay. And we're looking down at this situation.
I immediately stage a coup.
Was that gamer the gamer who said all gamers want puppy killing games? Was he right?
No.
Was it true that the majority of gamers, because obviously not all, but a majority of gamers enjoy games that involve killing puppies?
No.
Okay. So what happens to all those puppy killing games?
Well, they sit there for a long time, one thinks. Except they don't really, do they? Because apparently about 2/3 of the community will go, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't know it before now, but yeah, I like killing puppies. And they will go out and they will buy those terrible puppy killing games.
So 2/3 of these gamers will just go along with that for image sake?
Sure.
You think the number is that high?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
In a room of 10, 6 will go buy puppy killing games.
Okay. Well, then, I mean, yeah, well, then you have a problem.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, you're right. In that situation where if you truly believe 60% of people will go out and buy something that they don't want just for image, for membership in the community, well, that's what they're willing to do to be a member of this community.
The one that doesn't exist.
Right. And you're sort of out of luck.
Oh, okay.
People put value on non-existent things all the time.
Oh, all right.
All right. I just bought paint jobs for a spaceship in Elite Dangerous, okay? People put value on things that don't exist all the time. Okay?
All right.
Anyway, but no, my point is you're right. In that situation, yeah, then those puppy killing games are going to sell. And then the companies will keep making more of the puppy killing games. And if it is true that people will keep buying those games just to keep up the image, then all other games will cease to exist. And yeah, that kind of sucks. So what do you do?
Well, I don't know. What's my obligation to the community?
None. You have no obligation to the community.
Oh, because it doesn't exist.
Right. But what do you, Brian, personally want right now?
I would like a game where I get to pet puppies.
Okay. So here's what you do. Make it.
Oh, I have to make my own stuff now. Now I'm obligated to make things because the community that doesn't exist is all gone one way about something and I am all the other way about it.
Because there is something in the world that you personally want that you will benefit from. That, yes, it is your responsibility to make it happen. Again, suck it up, Buttercup. That's how it works. If other people aren't making the thing you want to make, because you can't just hold someone down and demand that they make the thing you want them to make. You can try. It won't work. But what will work... No. But hear me out here. Uh-huh. Now, let's say you have an enterprising friend.
Okay.
Because you don't want to make your own game. But you have an enterprising friend, and he is willing to put in the hard work, and he's always wanted to make a game. Mm-hmm. And you happen to mention to him that, it really sucks that the only thing that exists now are puppy killing games, that I would like a puppy petting game. Pet the pup. Mm-hmm. And your enterprising friend looks at you and says, you know what? You're right. I miss petting puppies too. I don't like this puppy killing stuff. I bought it to go along with the crowd, but that kind of sucks. And then you guys are talking to someone else, and all of a sudden this person starts hearing all of these people who are saying, man, I would really like a puppy petting game. And so he decides to go out and make the puppy petting game because he thinks that's what a lot of people want. He makes it, a lot of people buy it, and he gets rich, which is his reward for paying attention to what people actually want and ignoring what the rest of the crowd is doing. Now, it didn't have to work out that way. He could have sunk a huge fortune into making a puppy petting game, only to discover that the only one in the world who wants it is Brian. And he sells one copy. And then he loses everything he invested. But that's the risk that pays for the profit. Okay? That's how it works. Okay? And if a company is if a big company is listening to one loud YouTuber and not paying attention to anyone else except that one loud YouTuber, and they turn out to be chasing the wrong product, they deserve to go out of business. They done screwed up, And I don't, it's good to use puppy killing and puppy petting so that we don't have to discuss any loaded real life examples.
Right. We pick totally neutral examples.
Right. But the two of us could point to examples of companies right now following vocal crowds that they consider to be the online community and losing a fortune doing it. I know we both can come up with some examples.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's how it works. In fact, that's sort of like if I wanted to offer evidence that it isn't 60% at all, that I would point to some of those examples and say, most people won't just keep spending money for image on entertainment products. You know, some will, but eventually they get tired of it. And then the market shifts to keep up, or the market goes bankrupt. But that's also the great thing about anyone being able to enter the market. Like, if the market does become all about puppy killing, well, then someone can eventually come in and say, there's a hole in this market now for whatever reason. It doesn't even have to be because of a vocal YouTuber. It could just be because nobody ever had a better idea than a puppy killing game. And that person can bring that game out and they get rewarded and everybody ends up with the game. But none of this is moral duty. You know, this is all just people responding to incentives.
Okay.
I realize I basically just argued that the solution to the problem is free market capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we're talking about the buying and selling of entertainment products. That's all we're talking about. It's the most frivolous luxury crap imaginable. Okay. Gaming is not a basic human right. It is not something that is necessary to survive. It has no importance whatsoever. It is a toy for people who are wealthy enough to afford toys because they don't have to spend every day worrying about their own survival. I shouldn't have said wealthy enough. I should mean that that they're in a position where every day is not spent making sure they have enough food, which is the definition of a luxury item. Gaming is a luxury. It's a toy. It has no moral value beyond that. And so any arguments of moral duty have to keep that in mind. That it's just a frivolous toy for frivolous people that I personally love, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't have to spend every day worrying about my own survival.
So your ultimate answer is: do we owe a duty to the community? Is no, because the community doesn't exist, and because the thing about which the community is based is not essential, is not a basic human right, is not.
It has no moral value. I'm sorry. It's in terms of on the scale of human life and games, games are at -1 million in terms of value.
Okay.
I'm not saying they don't have any redeeming qualities and they aren't good for people, by the way. I'm just saying that in terms of rating the morality of games, it's pretty low on the list of moral importance.
I feel like there's more we should be covering with this topic, but I'm also aware that we're now 3 hours into a recording.
Yeah.
And that you have things to do and I have things to do, and we have to draw this to a close very quickly because we are, in a very real sense, out of time.